everyone, my name is Jessie Jennings and welcome to Let's Paint Live, our monthly painting party where we teach you to paint a full painting in just about an hour. So this month is one of my favorite months of the year because instead of doing a canvas painting, we're painting a pumpkin, which is so much fun. It's a nice little change of pace, and obviously this is the month that we're all painting pumpkins. So tonight I'm going to show you how to paint this really cute minty floral pumpkin using our Let's Paint Live kit. So just like every month, we're using our 24-piece Let's Paint Live kit. That's got all the colors you need to paint all of our monthly paintings. It also includes our 10-piece variety brush set. So like I said, you can paint any of the paintings from Let's Paint Live using this kit. So the specific colors tonight that I'll be using the kit are Aqua, Wicker White, Licorice, and Daffodil Yellow. So we're only going to need 4 colors for those. And then we'll also be using either Treasure Gold, which is our beautiful, brilliant golden paint, or you can use a paint pen. So those will be our final details, but I just want to let you know that. I've also got my water basin here. I've got my palette paper, a paper towel, and then here I have my 11-inch pumpkin. So these are really easy to find this time of year. This is just a faux pumpkin. You can get these at all the craft stores, and they're usually on sale too. But they're super easy to paint, and they're really nice instead of painting a real pumpkin because you can keep it for years to come. You don't have to get rid of it when the season is over. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started and show you how to paint this really cute floral pumpkin. So for this base color here, this like pretty minty color, we're going to be mixing some colors from the kit. And that's what I really love about the Let's Paint Live kit is that not only do you have 24 colors that really pretty much give you every color you'll need for paintings, you can also mix our FolkArt paints and they mix really beautifully. So while this really like trendy mint color is not in the kit, it's super easy to mix and I'm going to show you how. So I'm going to grab some of my Aqua. So this is like a darker color that's similar. I'm going to put some of that on my palette. You don't need a ton. I'm going to put a good bit of white. So I've got Wicker White. I'm going to put that on the palette as well, and a little bit more. And then I'm going to put a little touch of Daffodil Yellow. So what's going to happen is we're going to lighten up this Aqua with our white, and that's going to give us a nice pastel color. And then we want to make it a little more green to get that minty vibe, and so we're going to put a touch of yellow. So I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my Aqua. I start with a little bit because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. And I'm going to start mixing it into my white. And a little bit of Aqua goes a long way when you're mixing it into the white. So just start with a little bit and add more, or else you're going to have to add a bunch more white to try to lighten it up. So I just want to make sure it's really mixed. Here, I'll pull this in too so you can kind of see the color that we're trying to mix here. And you can see we have that nice, beautiful sky blue color, which is very pretty, but it's not that minty color we're going for. We need to sort of warm it up a little bit. So I'm going to do just the tiniest touch of yellow. You see how little that yellow is? I hardly have any on my brush. It's like the tiniest corner. And we're going to mix that in because this yellow will also go a really long way to kind of make it a very green color, so we don't want to start with too much. And you can see I'm mixing a good amount of paint here because we are going to be base coating our pumpkin. So I wouldn't necessarily always mix this much when I'm trying to mix a new color, but we are gonna need a good bit. And I don't want to have to remix if I can help it. So we're getting closer for sure. I think I want it to be a little bit mintier, so I'm going to add another tiny touch of Daffodil Yellow. You can see here, I'm hardly putting any paint on my brush. I just want the tiniest little bit of yellow. So I'm going to mix that in. And I know if you're mixing colors at home and you're not really familiar with mixing colors yet and you're kind of experimenting, which by the way is a great way to learn color mixing by just adding colors and seeing what you get, you can kind of end up with like a ton of paint because you just keep adding and adding and adding trying to get the color you want. So that's why I recommend just adding the tiniest bit at a time because then you don't get this like giant bowl of paint where you may not need all of it. Okay, I think that's a good color. So you can see here we've got this nice minty color. It's perfect for our pumpkin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start base coating my pumpkin. And the great thing about these faux pumpkins is that they're like perfectly paintable. You don't need to prime them. You don't need to prep them in any way. You don't need to sand them or anything. They're just kind of like right off the bat easy to paint. So I'm going to do one really even, smooth coat on this pumpkin. And when you're base coating things, whether it's your canvas or a pumpkin or whatever it is you happen to be painting, it's going to be it may be your instinct to just put a ton of paint on there and start just like globbing it on because you want to kind of get it out of the way, because base coating really isn't the most fun part. But I recommend doing a nice thin and even coat. You want it to stay smooth. You don't want to put a ton of paint on there. You want to put just enough to cover your surface. And the reason you want to do that is because A, it makes your paint dry much faster. So if you're an impatient painter like me, you're going to want your paint to dry nice and quickly. But B, if you put way too much paint on there, sometimes it can crack. So that's definitely not what we want. If you really glob the paint on there, there's going to be thin spots and thick spots. It's going to take forever to dry. It's going to dry unevenly. And if you overwork it, then it's just going to get kind of like gummy, which we do not want. So just do a nice, even, smooth coat, just one smooth coat, and it's going to be much easier in the long run.
Hey, Jessie.
Hey.
We have our first question.
Okay.
Can you use a real white pumpkin?
Sure, yeah, you can definitely paint on a real pumpkin. I am kind of the mindset that like I don't like to paint on pumpkins as much because I spend so much time in the painting. I hate to have to throw them away at the end of the season.
Right.
But if you prefer to paint real pumpkins just because you like the idea of having real pumpkins on your front porch or wherever you're keeping them, by all means you can paint on a real pumpkin. Sure thing.
We have lots of people excited for this project.
Awesome.
Commenters on both of our YouTube streams and our Facebook stream.
Cool.
Saying that they love the way this looks. They're excited to do it. Viewers from Australia
Wow.
chiming in, from Indiana. Let us know where you guys are watching from.
Cool.
We'd love to
Welcome,
see
guys. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Like I said, this is one of my favorite ones of the year. I haven't had the chance to host a Let's Paint Live recently, so I'm really happy to be back.
We have actually had Paula notice that you have not been here in a while, and she said, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was
you.
actually out on maternity leave. I had a little baby, so I'm back in action. I'm really excited to be teaching classes again, so I've been looking forward to this. Like I said, it's one of my favorites of all year. I love doing the pumpkin in October and the ornaments in December, so I'm excited this is my first one back.
Yeah, and going back to painting on real pumpkins, I think it was Tanisha on a different live stream for us this week, maybe last week, mentioned that if you are going to paint on a real pumpkin, maybe don't paint on a jack-o'-lantern, because as soon as you cut out and take the guts out of your pumpkin, it's going to decay a lot faster. It's going to age quicker. You guys probably know this, but I think it's worth mentioning.
That's a good point, though, because if you put just a whole pumpkin outside, it'll last about there, through November, through the fall season. But that's a really good point, Stephen. Once you start cutting into it, just a couple weeks in it's going to be gone because it's going to start to, rot much faster on your porch. So definitely paint on a whole pumpkin. That's a really, really good point. Okay, so I'm going to rinse my brush off. You can see here I have like one nice even coat. I was even managed to just really use the last of that paint and I didn't have to mix anymore, which I'm happy about. But if you do have to mix more paint, just try your best to get the same color, and if you can't, it's no big deal. Just try to blend it into the paint you already have on your pumpkin, and you may get even like a little bit of a two-tone effect, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you can just kind of lean into it, and that could be a really pretty look, actually. So don't stress, though, if you have to paint more. Just do your best to get the same color, and I'm sure it'll turn out fine. So now I'm going to turn my hairdryer on real quick. I've got my hairdryer here so I can dry my base coat, and then we'll start painting our flowers. What I love about acrylic paint is that it dries so fast. So that was just a minute or two of blow drying, and we are ready to start painting our flowers. So really quick before I do that, I do want to finish up my stem to make sure it's nice and neat. So I'm going to grab some of my licorice and I'm just going to base coat my stem using my smaller flat brush here. So nothing fancy, we just want to make sure that looks nice and clean so we have a pretty pumpkin when we're done. You could paint your stem gold if you're using treasure gold tonight. You could paint it white if you want to. You could even paint it the same mint color if you want to kind of have that like one-toned look, which is really pretty. But I'm going to go ahead and paint it black because I think it's kind of a nice pop at the top, and then we'll accent it in some gold later to make it really stand out. Where's everybody from, Steven? Are they chiming in?
Yeah, we have viewers from California, from Canada, from Virginia, Louisiana. Let me go back up a little bit here. Mississippi. Did I say Indiana already?
Yep.
I think I did, yeah. Yeah, so all over the place.
Awesome. Welcome, guys.
Arizona's just chimed in.
Cool.
Jessie, how does one register to find out about our Let's Paint Live events?
So each time we have a Let's Paint Live, as soon as the stream is over, we post an event for the next Let's Paint Live. So as soon as this one's over, an event will go up on Facebook. You can see it on our Plaid Crafts page too. And it'll tell you when and where and how to find us and the supply list and all of that for the next painting. And it'll also show you the painting, of course. And then you can click that you're attending that class and you'll get reminders for when the class comes. But just to let you guys know, it is the first Thursday of every month. So unless it's a holiday like 4th of July or Labor Day or something like that, we do it the first Thursday of every single month at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So just if you don't find the event for some reason or Facebook doesn't remind you for some reason, that's when we'll be here. So always on the Plaid Crafts page on Facebook and also obviously on YouTube.
Yeah, awesome. That was the last thing I was going to mention is we are doing our Let's Paint live streams on Facebook and YouTube now.
Yeah.
So you can find them on both of our channels there,
Yep.
which is Plaid Crafts.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want the reminders, like I said, Facebook's your best bet. And it'll remind you to go onto YouTube, wherever you like to watch. Okay. So just painted the stems, and I'm going to rinse my brush off. And make sure my brushes get nice and clean between each color so that they don't dry. The paint doesn't dry in my bristles, and that's how you keep your brushes nice for a very long time. These FolkArt brushes are super good quality. They're really inexpensive for the quality that you get, so if you keep them nice, you'll have these brushes for a very, very long time. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start painting our flowers. So here's the fun part. So to start, we're going to start by painting, I'll try to put this one in here a little bit. We're going to start by painting this central flower, and then that will kind of help with our composition so we can include all the flowers around it. But this one here, the white one in the middle with the black leaves, is the one we're going to start with. So that said, I'm going to put some wicker white on my palette. And I'm going to grab my small flat brush. This is a number 10 flat. I'm going to load up my brush. So you can see here, whenever you load up your brush, you want to have enough paint on your bristles so that you can, have a longer brush stroke. You don't have to be reloading in between every brush stroke. But you don't want to go so high that it gets in the ferrule because it's hard to clean out of the ferrule. And also, the more paint you have on your brush, the harder it is to control it. So like I said, you don't want to have too little paint because you don't want to have to be loading your brush so often, but you don't want to be globbing the paint on because the less paint you have on your brush, the easier it is to control when you're trying to put it onto your canvas or your pumpkin or whatever you happen to be painting. So I'm going to load my brush up, and I'm going to start by painting just a very classic flower petal shape. I'm going to start here, and your placement doesn't have to be the exact same as mine. You can choose your own composition, but I am going to show you how to paint each of these shapes that you can make the same composition if you want to. Do a very classic, I'm using the edge of my brush, I'm using it sort of vertical, very classic flower petal shape, just what you think of when you think of a flower petal. And then I'm going to fill that in. And then I'm going to do another one next to it, kind of pointing upwards. And that's how you kind of get that almost lotus flower effect. I don't know if I'd necessarily call this a lotus flower, but it really looked like one to me. It was giving me definite lotus flower vibes.
I can see it.
Yeah. There's no water really, but you know, same difference. I'm gonna do another one over here, and it's gonna be pointing upwards. And again, I'm just using the edge of my brush, of the edge of my flat brush, I should say. And then I'm gonna do another one kind of going down here. Again, just very classic flower petal shape. Fill that in a little more. And I'm loading my brush between each petal. And maybe I'll do one more here. Okay, so that is our first flower. You can go back and add a little more white and fill in if you need to. You can also wait for it to dry if you want and go back and give it a second coat. Just make sure it's nice and opaque. All right, so that is our first shape. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to paint all of the white shapes, white shaped flowers, I should say, and then we're going to go back with the other colored details. So now we've got to paint a slightly different flower. We're going to do more rounded petals this time. So I'm going to do I'm going to have my brush flat as opposed to sideways. And I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to do a round petal. You can see I kind of went left and pulled down and then went right and pulled down to get that petal. I'm going to turn my pumpkin and do another one here. Left, pull down, right, pull down, and then fill it in the middle. I'm going to turn a pumpkin again. And never be afraid to turn your canvas, whether you're painting a pumpkin or whatever it may be. Never be afraid to turn it so that you feel more comfortable. Whether you're right-handed or left-handed, you know, you don't have to worry about like kind of moving your arm in an awkward position. However it feels comfortable for you to paint is how you should turn your canvas. There's no reason that you shouldn't. So now I'm going upside down so because it's easier for me to pull down. That's what feels comfortable to me. And then our last petal. So now I have sort of a round flower shape. You can see they're really overlapped. The petals are not super distinct right now, and that's because we're going to go over later with some black outlines and some gold outlines, and that's where we're really going to make those, make the differences between the shapes really stand out. We're going to kind of outline those.
We had a question about our base coat color.
Sure.
Maybe somebody missed the first part of our live, and also it was 3 colors. It's hard to keep up with sometimes. We get it. But correct me if I'm wrong, it's a combination of our wicker white, our daffodil yellow, and aqua.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
So it's mostly wicker white with a little bit of aqua, and then just a tiniest bit of daffodil yellow to warm it up, and that is exactly right.
Got you.
Steven's paying attention. Okay, so now I'm going to do another round flower down here underneath our first one. We're going to kind of just fill in these areas. I'm trying my best to match my original composition, but it's really hard to paint the same thing twice. If you guys are people who paint frequently and you like to paint the same thing over and over, you'll know it's really, really hard to paint the exact same way more than once. It never turns out the exact same, which is okay. It kind of shouldn't. That's the fun thing about art. I'm going to do 4 petals on this one. You can see here I have this raw bottom showing, but I'll go back and paint that later. I always wait till the end, of course, so I don't get it messy. Okay. And now down here, this is our first one. I'm going down here. I'm going to do another one of these sort of like sharp petals. Petaled flowers, I should say. So like we did, I'm going to hold my brush. I'm going to pull down with the edge of my brush to make these really classic petal shapes. And I'm going to go around in a circle. Have that flower shape. You can see, like I said, these are super loose. The petals are not super distinguished, and that's because we're going to go back and we're going to outline them in gold later on, and that's really when the details are going to start popping out.
And I'm seeing that you're not placing them super far apart either. You're kind of keeping them equal distance from each other.
Right, I am. I'm trying to kind of keep the composition sort of balanced. But for this pumpkin, I'm really just painting the florals on the front. You can feel free to continue this pattern all the way around your pumpkin. If you want it to be beautiful from all angles, if you have it sitting somewhere where you're going to see the front and the back, or if you just really enjoy painting the flowers, feel free to continue this pattern all the way around it. But I'm just going to do the front of the pumpkin. All right, so now we've got our white flowers painted in. So next we're going to paint this, or these I should say, these aqua flowers and petals. And these are going to be a little bit different shaped. And it's kind of going to give it a good mix because we've got a lot of black and white and gold going on, but this gives it a little bit more interest. So I've already got some aqua on my palette from when we mixed our base coat color. But if you need to, go ahead and put some on your palette now. And I've got the same brush. I'm still using the number 10 flat. And I'm going to pick up some aqua. And I'm going to start with this big flower up in the left here. So this one, I'm going to try to make it look as if the flower is at an angle. So most of these were kind of looking head on. They're kind of, you know, like looking down on them, I guess I should say. This one's going to be kind of sideways from our perspective. So to do that, I'm going to make the flower look kind of wide. And I'm going to make the petals wider than I normally would. And that's going to give us the illusion that it's sideways. So for the top petal, I'm going to start about here. I'm going to do a tiny, like short and stumpy petal shape, round I should say. Just go something like that. And then on either side I'm going to go out a little further. And these are going to be kind of flat looking. And do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go out to the left, make it look really flat looking. And then I'm going to do another really wide petal on the bottom, wide and stumpy. And this kind of gives us the illusion that we're looking at a flower from the side. It's got the same amount of petals, but we're seeing it instead of from above, from the side. And again, these shapes are kind of looking a little strange now, but that's because we're going to go back later and add all those gold details so you can really see all of you know, the different angles and whatnot. All right, so once you've done that one, is everybody doing okay? Do I need to slow down at all?
No, I think we're good. We have a question about what the name of our pens that we're going to be using are.
Oh, okay. I always kind of use different paint pens. This one is called Deco Color. I believe I bought it at Hobby Lobby. But I know Michaels has really great ones. Their Craft Smart pens are good. Walmart's got great ones too. And like I said, Treasure Gold would work beautifully for this. If you have the patience, you can grab your liner brush. Like this one here is a number 1 liner brush and paint those details on and it will shine, shine, shine. It'll look like real gold. But since we need to keep this painting to just about an hour, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to use my paint pen tonight. So either one is great.
Yeah, and if you do think that we are moving a little too fast for you, I want to remind you that this will stay on our YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. You can go back and watch it at your own pace. You can pause if you need to. That's how I would do it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people like to watch it the first time, take notes, and go back and do it at their own pace, like we said.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you remembered to say that because I didn't. That's the best way to do these tutorials. While we love for you to paint along because it's so much fun and it feels like a party, we really recommend that you watch now and you interact and you ask the questions you need to ask and then go back later where you can pause and rewind at your own pace and you were able to, you know, get all your questions answered before you start painting it. So either way is fun. But yeah, that said, I just want to remind you guys too, I mentioned at the beginning, if you purchase this Let's Paint Live kit, you can paint all of the paintings. And we have all of these paintings linked on plaidonline.com, but also on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So we've been doing this for 4 years, I think, and we do it every single month. So there are dozens and dozens of paintings on there. We've got lots of pumpkins and ornaments and just seasonal. We have some that are just more evergreen, all kinds of paintings, animals, florals, landscapes, whatever it is that you guys want to paint. And they're all in just about an hour, which is really fun. We've got lots of instructors. It's a lot of me on there, but it's also Emma and Kirsten Jones. So make sure you guys, we have Donna Dewberry paintings on there. Make sure you go check those out because like I said, using this kit, you can paint every single one of them and they're all completely free, which is awesome. So just a little side note. All right, so we still have our aqua. We're gonna go in and we're gonna paint these little flowers here, which are much simpler. They're kind of just little circles. So I'm gonna do those. This is the part where you kind of wanna pay a little more attention to where they're gonna be, because we're gonna connect them with these stems and it kind of needs to make sense. So I'm gonna have them coming out of this first flower we painted. So I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna pull down the left and pull down on the right. And they're very round, but maybe a little elongated. Pull down on the left, pull down on the right. Oops. And then left, right. There you go. So you have those 3 shapes right there. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean my brush off. And the next thing we're going to start on are our black details. So this is kind of fun. It's kind of, I like adding the details. That's always my favorite part of a painting. So this is when you kind of get to like make all of these shapes start to really stand out, which is fun to me. Hopefully it's fun to you too. So I'm going to dip my brush in some black. And you may have seen I just dipped my brush in a little bit of water first. And I don't usually recommend adding water to your acrylic paint. The only reason I did that is because my black has been sitting on my palette for a little while, and I could see that it's starting to dry out slightly. So I just dunked my brush in a tiny bit of water before I started loading my brush, just to kind of rehydrate that paint. But fresh out of the tube, I wouldn't normally recommend that. Okay, so first we're going to start painting these black leaves. So we'll start with our first flower that we painted, so we can kind of go back in order of the way we did those. And I'm going to start by painting a couple of leaves coming out of the right side. And these leaves are going to be very thin, but they're going to be just, you know, how you think of when you think of a leaf. So I'm going to do the same way we did the petals. Use the edge of my brush. I'm going to outline it first and then fill it in. And it can be a little challenging to paint on a pumpkin just because it is dimensional, so it's not a flat surface, and sometimes your brush kind of wants to have a mind of its own when it's going over that bumpy surface, but just, you know, do your best. Keep in mind you can always go back and paint over it with that minty color and touch up if you need to. Do another one right below it. I'm going to do another one coming out of the top here. I think this black adds like a little bit of drama to this too. We've been so like pastel and light until now. This kind of like makes it a little bit more like dramatic, which I love. And then another one, we'll do another one down here. And then we'll do one down here at the bottom. I think I'm going to come out to the left here. And then we'll do a couple here at the bottom. Do a couple small ones coming at the top. I'm just kind of trying to fill in some of this like negative space. And what I mean by negative space is like the background where we don't have shapes. That is the negative space. I'm just kind of trying to fill it up a little bit so we have a nice full composition. And I didn't mention this at the beginning. If you're unfamiliar with the term composition, that just really means the layout of your painting, where all of your shapes and lines are placed. That's called the composition. And you can feel free to add, you know, more leaves and petals wherever you'd like. It's totally up to you. Your composition is yours, so it doesn't have to be the same as mine. You can make it up however you think. If you have a different shaped pumpkin maybe and a different composition works better for you, you can be creative with that. Or like I said, if you're planning on going all the way around the pumpkin, that's great too. It's totally up to you. All right, so I think that's enough black leaves for me. And now we're going to go in and we're going to add some of these flowers are going to have black stems. So we're going to go in and add those. So the first one I'll do is this bigger aqua flower that we painted. I'm going to have a stem that connects it to this flower here. So I'm going to go sideways on my brush, the same way we've been drawing our petals. And I'm just going to pull down to make that stem there so it's connected. And then I am going to add some black leaves to that stem. Okay. Fill that in a little bit. And then I'm going to add some stems to these smaller aqua shapes that we made as well. So I'm going to have those that go down and kind of connect to that bigger flower, just like that. Okay, and I think that's it for all of our black details. Like I said, you can add more or less if you want to. It has really made our composition much more dramatic, like I mentioned earlier. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean my brush off. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dry it with the hair dryer. And like I said, Treasure Gold is great for these final details because it is so shiny, and you don't have to worry about it being smelly. Like a lot of these, like this paint pen, for example, has a little bit of an odor to it because I believe it's oil-based, whereas our Treasure Gold is just as shiny as this, probably shinier, and it's water-based. So if you have kids at home or pets at home and you don't want to use something that's got an odor to it, Treasure Gold is the way to go because, like I said, it's water-based, non-toxic, and you get just as much shine, if not more. So if you're using Treasure Gold at home, you can grab your #1 liner brush and paint these beautiful details on. We even have different jewel tones in our Treasure Gold line, so if you don't want to do gold, you can do silver, or we've got beautiful aqua colors, and pinks even would be kind of pretty with this. So I highly recommend using Treasure Gold. But for time's sake, because we're trying to finish this painting in just about an hour, I'm going to use this paint pen. So whenever you are using a paint pen on top of existing acrylic paint, you want to make sure your paint is super dry because it's really easy to get that felt tip of your paint pen gummed up. It'll catch really quickly, and then you have to, clean off the tip of your pen, and it just takes forever. So we're going to make sure that our paint is super, super dry with the hair dryer before we move on to this step. Okay, like I said, I want to make sure it's really, really dry. It feels super dry. So I think we're ready for our gold to add. So I always say this in every painting I do, and I say it for every step, but this is my favorite part. This is the best part to me, adding the gold details, because it really makes the whole thing come together, and it's really fun to outline the flowers. It kind of feels like doodling. So I'm going to get my paint pen ready by shaking it, and then you want to press down, oh, there we go, on the tip to make sure the paint is flowing, and it is flowing for sure. And then I'm going to go through now, and I'm going to outline these petals. But I'm not just, oh, we got a little splatter action there. I'm not just going to outline the petals itself. I'm going to really kind of draw the petals in, if that makes sense. So instead of outlining just, I'm not going to do that again. Instead of outlining just the edges, I'm going to draw the full petal so we get that center detail as well. So you can see here on this final one, this is where you really get that detail and our shapes really come together. So I'll show you what I mean. So for this one, I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to fill that to like kind of, what I'm trying to say, like make that shape stand out. Do the same thing here, start in the middle and make those shapes pop. So this, the shape of the flower is really starting to come together. It's not just a blob of color anymore. It's going to be an actual detailed flower. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of a vein to the petals. I'm not sure if that's what it's called when it's a petal, but the details. I'm going to keep doing that on all of these. I'm going to start here. I'm going to go all the way around my circular petals. I'm going to add a couple lines to these to give it some details. And then down here. And then our last white flower. And then I'm also going to go through on the black leaves as well and outline those and add a vein to those. This marker is very smelly. That's why I prefer Treasure Gold. Okay, you can see this is much quicker though, that's why I'm doing it tonight. So now I'm going to outline these aqua little tiny flowers here. They're kind of like baby's breath or something tiny. And I'm going to give those some details, just little lines. And then I'm going to make the little stamen coming out of those. With little balls on the end. Do you guys see that? And I'm going to make sure I get all of my black leaves.
I love the way that the black and the gold contrast on our blue, like tealish aqua base coat.
Thank you. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it's really nice.
I'm like really obsessed with this color combination. Especially for fall. It's like such an unexpected color combination. I think it's so pretty. Mm-hmm. Okay, so last but not least, we're doing this one here, which gets a little more complicated because remember, the way we drew it is that so it looks like it's sideways. So I'm going to start in the middle here. I'm just going to make a dot so I don't forget where my middle is. And I'm going to outline this top petal, then I'm going to outline my bottom petal, and then the sides. We're going to make sure that we keep that look that we were going for. And now that's outlined there. And then I also went through on the original one, I added some little areas of gold around the edges just to kind of like give it some more detail. Just see those there, like where I added some in between the petals and in between the flowers, just to add some more detail. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Kind of almost like little, like quotation marks, just between some of the shapes, just to fill it in a little more, and like I said, give it a little more detail.
You know, that's not the first thing that I would have noticed on the original pumpkin, but once you've added it to this one, it really stands out.
Yeah, right?
Like, it's definitely like a helpful addition.
Yeah, it just really helps fill in, like we talked about those negative spaces earlier, it really helps fill those in. So it's just a little fun trick to kind of add to something like this. Okay, so now I'm also going to add some gold to the stem just because it looks so dark. You can see here I kind of just accented it with some gold. So I'm just going to kind of drag, this is kind of a fun technique. I'm just going to kind of drag the tip of my pen over the high areas. I'm not doing anything fancy. It's like really not a lot of technique here. I'm just really sort of messily, like very loosely, dragging it over the areas so that it just catches those peaks and gives it kind of a highlight. Do you see that there? Like these pumpkins, these funkins, if you will, come with really like realistic textured stems. So you can kind of really just hit those top areas and it just grabs that beautiful gold metallic sheen. And if you're doing this with Treasure Gold, you can do the exact same thing with your brush. It's a really fun technique just to give it a little more detail. That's kind of like the magic word tonight.
We had a question on our Facebook stream about where to find our YouTube channel. If you just go on YouTube and search Plaid Crafts, that's us.
Yep, there we are.
It should be the first thing you find.
Yeah, on our YouTube channel, we not only have all of our awesome Let's Paint Live classes, but we've also got lots of craft classes as well. We've got lots of Mod Podge classes and tutorials on there. So we've got a lot of really fun content. I don't know if everybody knows that we have a YouTube channel, but we've really got tons and tons and tons of video content on there. So if you guys are interested in more tutorials like this, make sure to go check us out on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to check us out on Facebook.
You guys know the drill.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are coming up on our very last step of the evening, and that is adding the, I guess you would call this stamen as well, to the center of the flowers. All those black dots to create like a little bit of dimension and detail in the center of those flowers. So to do that, I'm going to grab my brush, and we're going to use the handle of our brush to get those black dots instead of the bristles. So this is just my number 10 flat. Really, any of them will work though. I'm going to dip it in my black paint. You can't really see it because it's black on black. But I just want a little bit of black paint on the end of my brush. And I'm going to go into the center of my flowers, and I'm going to go dot, dot, dot. And you need to kind of load it pretty often because, you know, since it's a non-porous surface, it doesn't really want to hold a ton of paint, but that's okay. We're using it kind of as a stamp. I'm going to keep loading my brush and dotting in the center of these flowers to create the textures that you see in the middle of flowers. Here's our last one. Okay, guys, that was the last step of this floral pumpkin. Are there any more questions before we finish up?
I think we are all caught up on questions, but if you guys have any last-minute ones, go ahead and type them in, and I will read them off to Jessie. I think this is one of my favorite Let's Paint Lives. I've been seeing the photos of it for so long. I just love the colors. I love that it's on a pumpkin. That's always fun, fall and Halloween decor.
Yeah.
And I also love that it's not traditional fall decor, kind of like you mentioned earlier. You know, you think of a lot of like oranges and yellows and reds and stuff, and at Halloween you think of like green
Spooky.
and purple and stuff. Yeah, and this is not that. It's not either of those, and I really like that about this.
Thanks, Steven. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we had lots of people saying how much fun they had watching and how they love the colors, like I mentioned before. So well done, Jessie.
Thank you so much. Well, guys, our pumpkin is complete. Make sure to sign your pumpkin because it is a beautiful work of art. If you guys want to put this outside, our FolkArt matte paint is not recommended for outside. So if you haven't painted yet, you can use multi-surface paint, and that is great for outside. But if you paint along with me and you use our Let's Paint Live kit, grab some outdoor Mod Podge and seal this. Just put a nice coat on there, and you can keep it on your covered porch throughout the season for your trick-or-treaters and whatnot. I had so much fun painting with you guys. Like I said, it's my favorite month of the year. This and the ornaments in December. Next month, Emma will be here painting a really beautiful autumn valley with you guys, so make sure to tune in. Like I said, it's the first Thursday of every month at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
On our Facebook page and our YouTube channel.
On our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, exactly. So like I said, we'll be here next month